Hey guys, what's up? Stock Retail coming back to you on a pretty big news day. And I had some time to put together a few thoughts today, so I thought I'd kind of get back here on YouTube and tie quite a few things together. So, if you didn't see, we had an announcement from the SEC that Robinhood has gotten a Wells notice. We'll talk a little bit about what is that, and then what does it mean. And actually, I believe it ties to a lot of really our entire 3 year history. So, we're going to talk about quite a few things today. Let's just dive in. So, you saw the news this morning. Robinhood stock dives after this Wells notice. Notice specifically, Robinhood gets basically a Wells notice to their crypto business. If you don't know, you can kind of just go look this up. But Wells notice is a letter that you get that basically says the SEC has already found something and is moving into an enforcement action against you. So the SEC believes it has had enough time to gather information, has enough to go on to actually move towards an enforcement action against Robinhood's crypto business. Really highlighting that crypto piece. Interesting. We're going to come back to that. If you didn't see last night, Adam had kind of a fun tweet that, again, a lot of this I'm going to tie together. And he talks about these gorilla sofas, which look pretty cool. You'd have to have a pretty big living room for these. They take up a lot of space in the room. But interesting, he says digital only, do not exist in real life. And think about these are ape. So ape, digital only, do not exist in real life. Starts to sound a lot like the token issue I've been talking to you about for 3 years now. And so I do want you to hear that. That's why I'm highlighting that. And then just for fun, I noticed this Lux Arts, and I went and looked it up. And Adam kind of said, "Hey, these don't even exist. They're just concept." And if you go look, you'll see it's actually Lux Arts AI. And then people do a lot of decoding and stuff. So I was like, I'm just curious what that is. And there's just no way that's an accident. Adam put that out there, I think. LuxArts AI, if you go look it up, the decode in like Gematria that you see some people using is 801. So just a neat signal, him acknowledging, I think that's opinion, him acknowledging some things going on, and the fact that it's an 801 signal is kind of cool. So lots to unpack there, but we're going to keep going and see how this all starts to tie together. Just to kind of note, though, that, he tweeted this last night, and then this morning we got the Wells notice news. So that's kind of interesting to me too. Don't know if he had heard something or not, or if that's a coincidence. Um, I want to kind of tie a little bit of our history together because I'm going to show you why I think today and the fact that that's Robinhood crypto really matters. So let's just start to look at a few things I've said over the years. Here's one from not too long ago, last November. I was reminding people that Binance and basically FTX had made the tokens the night before the buy button was removed. And, that is pretty significant. That's a pretty damning timeline, which I have covered in some other videos, in which I'm going to show you where you can kind of go get some more information on that. A while back, just as we kind of focus in on Robinhood, I had shown you guys some clips of the snippets, I guess, of the GameStop report. This was the congressional report where Robinhood said in the congressional report that about 2/3 of the risk that they had, this value at risk charge, about 2/3 of that was AMC related. So, pretty clear. You get the buy button, you get tokens, you get Robinhood saying AMC was 2/3 of their risk. There's a lot going on around AMC there. You can just see, this is 2 years ago here. I was kind of, in a way, trolling or sort of signaling some people that I knew. So 127 now being kind of obvious there, January 27. STO was what Cohodes had pushed on us, securitized token offerings. And I was just talking about tokens, January 27th, the buy button. So you can see I was kind of speaking in code there 2 years ago and telling them, hey, I know what's going on here. Also, about 2 years ago, I guess this one's a year and a half ago, just was talking about how, things like wrapped assets, in this case, talking about sheep, but, you can look at some others, hiding FTDs, OTC stock trades. These are all the things you're starting to learn that these guys did to us. And some folks, had been on top of this for years. And so that's all I'm just showing you, that this is all wrapped together, and we're going to kind of show that through the rest of the video as well. But FTX, Binance, CM Equity AG, wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing them show up. Bittrex, the timing with the buy button, the tokens being created, and actually Ape itself. But I'm jumping ahead a little. We'll get to that. So not long ago, I had kind of talked about, and there's a couple things here that we're going to get back to. The fact that in August '08, Bitcoin kind of starts its history, and that was shortly before the VW squeeze. The fact that there was the crash back then around that same time. The fact that Ribbit Capital is an early investor in Robinhood. Again, I mentioned Bittrex, FTX. So I'm going to fly through these. I know it's probably feeling cryptic and not yet making sense, but I'm just trying to tell you, if you've been following along, I've been laying the breadcrumbs for everything that's happening. And so there was one where I got a little more clear, but there's still some, I don't know, it doesn't totally explain the whole thesis yet, but I want you to just go see if you don't follow what I'm saying. I've talked a lot about the great unwind, and some of you keep asking, hey, I don't fully understand. In many ways, this tweet, which is in my highlights, is it. So I'll just read it real quick. I've done that once before here on YouTube as well. So, I talked about tokens being wrapped. So look for wrapped assets. We're going to talk about Ethereum here in a minute too, some things like that. Phantom assets kind of gets back to what Sam was doing with FTX. Ape basically was preferred equity, so it had a par value. I've talked a little bit before how preferred equity can act a little bit like a bond, so it's a little bit more like a real asset. And I think that blew them up. So that's the next bullet. It's kind of like a game of operation. When you touch the metal, zap, the whole thing goes zap. Well, I think Adam zapped what Sam was doing and what CZ was doing. And by the way, all you got to do is look at the timeline of events, and I'm going to show you a little bit about that too. And you can kind of see how I believe there's a reason Adam said checkmate. The rear view is going to clarify history when this is all said and done. That's what I believe as well. It's going to become more clear, and we're going to see that Adam has done a great job. You can see FTX, Binance, Bittrex. So you've been seeing some folks, and I'm going to make that more clear here in just a minute or two. You kind of felt that zap. Ape, when Ape converted, that's, by the way, we've been talking a lot now about Bitcoin and the ETFs, and I've gotten more and more noisy about that. If you go back and look at the timeline, it's when Judge Zern approved the conversion of Ape. About that same exact time is when BlackRock basically put on a fast-forward offense to get the Bitcoin ETFs going. So that is the relationship a little bit with Bitcoin, and I think Bitcoin's connection to all these wrapped assets and sort of fraud had to be broken, which has been happening. That's been a lot of what we've seen over the last, I'll call it 2 months. So there's a lot going on there. Wrapped assets coming home in time. All bills must settle. Algos run on time, matches on. So there's a lot going on with tokens, with timelines, with Bitcoin, with AMC, with Ape, and it's all related in my opinion. You could see clear back in November 21. I've pointed this out before, but just for some of my new followers, I was already explaining what was going on with tokens and digital assets and all that stuff with AMC. You can go find that one on Reddit. That's a little more through the lens of all that Cohodes and Terra were trying to push on us, and I had stood up very vocally and said, hey, this is bad news. We don't want this. And you'll see all that's been going on. The scoreboard shows that I was right. And so that's also why I'm continuing to be pretty noisy on this. There's another video I made. This one's maybe a year and a half ago or so. All about tigers and frogs, all of this tokens history. You can find the VW and the Bitcoin history and the 2008 crash, and tying together some timelines for you, so you can go see that. All right, let's start to get to a little bit more to the meat. So just reminding you, you would see this in that other video as well. If you go back, you can see here 2020. Interestingly, not too long before the buy button and the squeeze of 2021, that Ribbit Capital invests in Robinhood. And they are and you're noting here too that Ribbit Capital was an early Bitcoin investor. That's one of the main things I want you to see here. Ribbit Capital starts to show up everywhere. Early Bitcoin investor, invests in Robinhood, and actually you're going to see right here that they're actually also behind FTX. So Ribbit and Tiger. And the reason I bring up Tiger, you've got two different categories of Tiger basically. And I suspect probably related. So you're going to see something about tiger cubs if you really go through our history. And there are some folks on Twitter who have talked about that. I'm sure it's been talked about on some of the other platforms. So you get Cohodes, you get that guy Shkreli, you get you start kind of getting into some relationships with people like Hempton, I believe even Pulte. Yes, I said it. Dougie, some other. So tigers and tiger cubs are a vast network of large shorts who are basically up to no good. And so, not surprising to find Tiger Global was behind FTX, as was Ribbit Capital, basically. Okay, so I'm not actually saying those are all the same thing, but there are some significant relationships. And you can also go back and note the same time Cohodes came, which he was definitely a Tiger Cub kind of club leader. We got a lot of frog accounts too about that same time. So I'm looking at Ribbit Capital and kind of saying, hey, there's no coincidences. And that was what was going on there. So let me just remind you a little bit of the timeline. This was something I had shared a long time ago. I've continued to sort of protect the anonymity of someone who was behind this slide itself, but I can validate or verify for you that I contributed a lot of the information on the slide, and this other account contributed quite a bit of the information on the slide too. And we kind of just collaborated to put that together, and that account took time to put the slide together. And so I felt comfortable sharing it because I had a hand in helping create this. So you can see though, and it just becomes really clear and visual. And there's some other things now that I've told you that aren't even on this slide, but you get Bittrex launching tokenized stock trading shortly before the January 2021 sort of earthquake. You get the tokenized stock created the night before the buy button. Here it says January 26th. I often say January 27th. You know, we're just kind of off by a day depending on how you want to capture that history. But the point is, right before the buy button issue, you get the tokenized stock and you start getting Binance and FTX involved, and Bittrex and CM Equity AG and all that stuff. And then you get Vlad and Kenny. And I always say don't sleep on Interactive Brokers. Interactive Brokers also removed the buy button that day. So it wasn't just Robinhood. And then even I often talk about, you know, brokers that went down and all that. And by the way, we're going to come back and tie Robinhood into all of this and that Wells notice. So hang with me here. So you get the buy button removal. You get kind of Binance, basically more engagement there. And what starts to happen is Binance starts to back out of some of those tokens, but you start getting FTX. And you can kind of go through this later. I might even just skip past a couple reminders. Maybe when Ape comes along, you get sort of 3 months later, FTX blows up. And when Ape was converted, you kind of have a 3-month timeline to some other things happening as well. So both at Ape creation and sort of Ape conversion, there was a lot of stuff connected to that, which is also why I believe you can sort of, I've got a whole video where I showed you, like I said, this concept of you can track invisible objects by their impact on the visible. So go find that, where I'm just saying, hey, there's some stuff that we can't fully see, but you can see its impact on the visible world. So like with Ape, you can see it blew up FTX. We got the cost to borrow run to 1,000% and all that stuff. So there was a lot going on, all related, continuing to come back to buy button and tokens. I would just say those two things, and really tokens then expands out to wrapped assets and a lot of things on crypto. So let's actually kind of look at the scoreboard, and now you're really going to see all of that come together if we go through these folks. So I mentioned Binance. All right, so where are they at? Well, CZ's in jail, right? And I have called out since 2021, they made the tokens basically the night before the buy button. Okay, he's in jail. I said FTX also was involved with the tokens and sort of the endless liquidity ferry kind of a concept, in jail. All of these, by the way, connect to AMC. Every single one of these. We've talked about Robinhood now, the buy button removal, and now, again, you're seeing Robinhood. What's the Wells notice for? Crypto, right? Tokens, wrapped assets. I'm going to keep beating that drum until this thing is over and history shows that I was right. Now they've got this enforcement notice. We've got, remember, T0 pushed what on us? Securitized tokens. We have seen them have enforcement actions against them. We had Uniswap recently had a Wells notice, and I told you that is actually related to AMC as well. People don't like when I talk about the 8 quadrillion and all that stuff because I get that that's an insane number, and I'm not saying there's 8 quadrillion AMC shares that were, sort of printed as a liquidity fairy, but there's a lot. And the point is, these wrapped assets and the bridge between some of the crypto assets uh, kind of goes through um, Uniswap. Okay. Well, they are under an enforcement notice. Are you starting to see the stuff I've been telling you? These are the very people who are all getting in trouble. And do you really want to try to argue to me that's a coincidence? I have told you before to watch 2 Sigma. That is another one to keep your eyes on. They are under an SEC investigation. I mentioned don't sleep on interactive brokers, also removing the buy button. They have had enforcement action against them. Ethereum, remember wrapped assets. I keep saying wrapped assets as a way to, it's part of the sort of defrauding mechanism. Well, they are under investigation. Dougie Large at Virtu is under an enforcement action. Okay, so there's a lot of this stuff going on. All the people that either are the liquidity fairies, that are directly printing the tokens, that are helping pass the tokens through, that are clearing out OTC trades, dealing with FTDs. This all relates back to OTC, dark pool, FTDs, endless liquidity, endless shorting, rehypothecation. All of this stuff is connected to these guys and a couple others that I haven't put on the screen. And every single one that I've been telling you, watch for this, is either in jail, under investigation, or an enforcement happening. Now, when you put it all on one page like this, I hope you see it's pretty clear. We're not just making stuff up here. This is actually going on, and the SEC sees it. And by the way, I say it again and again, as much as I'm not going to get on here and say I love Gary or anything like that, he comes from Goldman Sachs, he comes from the world that we are fighting, but let's give credit where it's due. The SEC is involved in enforcing and or putting in jail on every single one of these things. So you can't be out there screaming that he's doing nothing for us. You could be screaming he's not doing enough. I understand that. But for me, it's also a tell for some accounts who I don't think are really with us that they can't acknowledge even one thing that he does. If you can't acknowledge anything, then you're just openly fighting him. You know who else has been fighting him? Congress and Hester and Dougie, and actually every single group on here has been fighting Gary. I don't think you want to side with these guys. I know I don't. So I'm just going to acknowledge that he has taken action against these people. And that's okay to acknowledge. That doesn't mean we now are going to be quiet in demanding more change. I'm going to be all the louder, right? I was loud about this and we've seen progress. I'm going to continue to be loud. So, all right, enough on that. Just a few other things I already mentioned, but I just want to kind of bring that out. So if you were to look at the history of Bitcoin and the VW squeeze, which is the current MOAS, until we MOAS, you have to kind of acknowledge VW's role in that. So just some interesting timing with Bitcoin. And now you know, if you've been following me, that I've started to be a little more loud about Bitcoin for a while here. Probably some relationship to all that's going on in crypto, relationship to AMC, relationship to how they were attempting to defeat us, and frankly, I believe to defeat Bitcoin. I just think it's all wrapped up together. So just a reminder about the last crash and squeeze, that the Bitcoin started to show up in that time frame. So there's a pretty big tangled web, but there's some repeating themes that I just want to draw your attention to, and you'll start to understand what's been happening, let's say, over the last year, and you'll understand what's going to happen over coming months. I keep mentioning tokens. You're going to continue to see, that's why I call it the great unwinding, because it's just this tangled mess that's got to be unwound. And that unwinding, I believe, notice that word believe, I can't promise it, but I believe is part of our squeeze. Wrapped assets and securities fraud, that is, I think, why you're having a lot of discussion around proof of stake and what's going on with Ethereum. And my point of view is it's not strictly just about Ethereum, or Robinhood isn't just about Robinhood. It's about securities fraud against a whole lot of tickers. I'm obviously an AMC account. I'm pretty focused on AMC. I think AMC is the biggest of the fraud personally, but you will find other OTC stocks in particular, OTC trades on tickers. You just go back to 2021 and think of the basket of sort of meme stocks. You would find a lot going on there, and ties to Virtu as well. And so a lot of this, I think, is related. FTCs, I just talked about OTC a little bit, sort of dark pools and hiding things, clearing things, but really, in a way, just moving and burying problems that I believe are coming to light. I've mentioned tigers and frogs. You're going to see that as a theme if you want to go digging. The buy buttons and the halts and the liquidity fairies. So this is kind of the theme, but if you go back to, see if I can do this real quick here. If you go back to this slide, it's all related here and to a few other companies that I think you're going to start to see show up. So if I was some of these guys and some of their buddies, I think I'd see the writing on the wall and try to start singing and tell on a lot of my friends, which, by the way, is why I think CZ only got 4 months. I'm just going to assume, because the government was pursuing 3 years on him, I have a feeling they applied some pressure and he's probably talking. Don't know that. That's speculation. We will be finding out if we start seeing more of his buddies getting in trouble. But I mean, here we had Robinhood get in trouble with the Wells notice shortly after CZ's sentencing, right? That was just last week. Other things I think you should keep watching for. So I mentioned like the tigers and frogs, also wolves, among us even, I would say. And I would watch for snake oilsmen and snakes. Here, just a thought. I'm thinking through how I want to position this. If you went and invested in a company and you took a position in a company, you invested your money, your goal is to make money, right? You go long, you invest in a company, you take a position, your goal is to make money. Would you turn around and attack that company? That in theory is going to cost you money if any negative news drives your stock down, right? So if I announce to the world I'm taking a position in a company and then I only speak negatively of it and harass that company, would you believe me? Would you think those two things tie together? So if there's someone out there doing that kind of stuff, I just implore you, question them. Question, 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 especially if they've been involved with all kinds of sleaze over the years. And I'm just going to leave that at that. There are two, I believe, that are without blemish. So if you look at that slide earlier on all the people who've committed all kinds of sins, there's two without blemish in my opinion. And these are the only two I frankly care about right now. And I've been pretty vocal about that. So there's a reason I'm in these two. I believe in them. All right, so other things coming. The earnings call. Man, I'm looking forward to that on Wednesday. Adam is going to talk to us, and we'll get to hear from him directly. You know, I've seen a lot of spin the last few days, and frankly, some stuff that's just flat out made up out of the air that I don't think is true at all, even from some ape accounts. And I've got a problem with that. I've always said, no, trust me, bros. I've always said the DD oath is if it doesn't come from Adam, or like Sean Goodman, who's the CFO, or it doesn't come from the AMC Investor Relations site or the SEC Edgar site, if it's not from those sources, then it's just trust me, bro, and I don't trust you, bro. So it's not DD unless you see it from an official source. And ask for sources. It's okay. You're not being rude if you ask for sources. You're challenging some people to stop making crap up. Okay, I think that's good. So the vote is coming. I am absolutely going to vote. I just encourage you to vote. Please do. Yes, I heard the rumblings today that there's some folks talking about some no votes on some stuff. My lean is almost always going to be to vote yes with this board and with Adam, because they have steered us through basically the worst disaster that a movie company could have ever have faced, and they've avoided bankruptcy. They've done right by us, so I tend to vote yes with them. I'm just going to confess to you, I need to do my own DD on this, and I'll try to make a video soon on maybe not how I'm voting, but what I think the considerations are. I like to try to be respectful of the fact that some of you will disagree with me and vote other ways, but I'm not going to lie, it's a little triggering when we, during the ape days, we had all of the worst possible accounts, some who are even in jail now, were the ones constantly pushing no votes, right? So it's when I hear someone do that now, my radar goes up, but I want to just give the benefit of the doubt and go read myself before I have any kind of strong opinion on that. But either way, whether you're yes, whether you're no, whatever, please, please, please vote. I know last time we didn't really show up for the vote. and that was a little frustrating for Adam, I believe. So let's do this. Let's get behind this. Let's get behind our company. Let's vote. Just a reminder, we are now in a season where the box office is just going to steadily climb. I'll probably start posting more results from the box office soon because we're kind of more back to a time when we can party a little bit. So I think that's just going to be awesome. So those are some things coming around the corner. Lastly, just to kind of finish up, just simplify it. I know I went through this fast today, but I believe all of this is tied together and it's this big complicated web. But if you want to simplify it, look, I believe we got through the survive part. That's in the rear view mirror. And I've said that clearly so that when we get this earnings call, remember he's talking about results that are from January and February and March. That's the rear view mirror. And he has to do that. He's doing it right by his investors. He's having an earnings call and reviewing our performance. It's a management review. I'm glad they do it, and I want to come listen to it. But keep in mind, that's a rear-facing exercise. It's reviewing our results from 4 and, like 5 and 4 and 3 months ago, kind of a thing, or 4, 3, and 2 months ago, January, February, March. So I believe we've accomplished the survive part of this journey, and we are now moving into thrive. That's why I'm pointing you to the May, June, July, August type of box office numbers that you're going to start to really love. And so that's that thrive coming for the second half of this year, for all of 2025 and 2026. You keep seeing huge movies being announced for those years. We're going to be really, really happy we're in this company, I believe. Couple notes for our opponents. I'm just going to let these be cryptic, and the people who want to understand them can understand them. You will reap what you sow, and I have destroyed your lies with truth. Just going to leave those there. And as always, you guys know that I believe we will win. So let's go.